A woman lets a homeless man stay the night at her home. Later, she finds out that this isn't the first time she has met the man because he saved her life 20 years ago. Sarah Bennett pulled her coat tighter around her shoulders as she navigated the familiar streets of her Chicago neighborhood. As she turned the corner onto the street where her favorite bookstore stood, she noticed a figure sitting on the steps outside. It was a man, wrapped in layers of worn clothing, his head bowed against the cold. Sarah had seen him there before, but today something in his posture, a quiet dignity despite his circumstances, made her pause. She hesitated, her gaze lingering on the man. He appeared to be in his 50s, with gray streaks in his hair and lines etched into his face that spoke of hard years and stories untold. There was a moment of internal debate, a tug of war between her desire to help and the societal norms that often dictated distance. "Hi," Sarah said, stepping closer. Her voice was gentle, almost hesitant. "It's getting pretty cold out here." The man looked up, his eyes meeting hers with a mix of surprise and cautious curiosity. "Yes, it is," he replied, his voice carrying the rough edges of someone unaccustomed to frequent conversation. Sarah shifted her weight, her decision solidifying. "Would you like to come inside for a bit? I'm just on my way home, and it's warm there. You can get something hot to drink, maybe rest for a while." The man's eyes widened slightly, and he studied her with an intensity that made Sarah wonder what he saw. Kindness? Pity? She hoped it was the former. "That's very kind of you," he said, his voice tinged with gratitude and surprise. "I'm Tom, by the way. Tom Sullivan, Sarah Bennett," she replied, offering a smile that she hoped conveyed sincerity. "Come on, it's just around the corner." As they walked, Sarah found herself glancing at Tom, curious about the man she'd impulsively invited into her home. There was a quiet strength in the way he moved, a sense of resilience that intrigued her. When they reached her apartment, Sarah unlocked the door and gestured for Tom to enter. The warmth of the room enveloped them, a stark contrast to the biting wind outside. Her apartment was small but cozy, filled with eclectic furniture and a bookshelf overflowing with novels and art books. "Make yourself comfortable," Sarah said, heading to the kitchen to prepare tea. She tried to push aside the doubts that had begun to creep in, concerns about safety, about the wisdom of her decision. Yet, something in her heart reassured her that this was the right thing to do. Tom settled onto the couch, taking in his surroundings with quiet appreciation. "You have a nice place," he commented, his eyes lingering on a framed photograph of a younger Sarah with her family. "Thanks," Sarah replied, returning with two steaming mugs. "It's not much, but it's home." They sat in companionable silence for a few moments, sipping their tea. The warmth seeped into Sarah's bones, easing the tension of the day. She felt a flicker of connection, a sense of shared humanity that transcended their different circumstances. "What brings you to this neighborhood?" Sarah asked, genuinely curious about Tom's story. Tom hesitated, as if weighing how much to reveal. "I've been moving around for a while. Used to live here years ago, before things changed." "Things?" Sarah prompted gently, sensing that there was more beneath the surface. Tom gave a small, rueful smile. "Life, mostly. It has a way of throwing curveballs when you least expect it." Sarah nodded, understanding the unspoken complexities in his words. "Well, if you ever need a place to warm up, you're welcome here." "Thank you," Tom said, his voice soft with sincerity. "It means a lot." As the evening wore on, Sarah felt a quiet contentment settle over her. She didn't know what had driven her to reach out to Tom, but she felt certain that their paths had crossed for a reason. It was a chance encounter, a moment of unexpected kindness that might just change both their lives. In the glow of the lamplight, they continued to talk, sharing stories and finding comfort in each other's company, unaware of how their fates had already intertwined in ways neither of them yet understood. The soft hum of conversation filled the apartment as Sarah and Tom sat across from each other at her small kitchen table. Tom held his mug with both hands, absorbing its heat. He glanced around the room, taking in the understated charm of the space. It was clear that Sarah had poured herself into every detail, from the vibrant artwork on the walls to the carefully curated bookshelf that lined one corner. "So, Sarah," Tom began, setting his mug down and leaning back in his chair, "what made you decide to invite a stranger in on a cold night like this? Not that I'm complaining," he added with a chuckle, the sound rumbling like distant thunder. Sarah shrugged, a faint blush coloring her cheeks. "I guess I just wanted to help. It's hard to see people struggling and not do anything about it. Besides," she added with a wry smile, "I figured you didn't look too threatening." Tom laughed, a sound that seemed to light up his face. "Well, I suppose that's good to know. I promise I'm harmless. Just a little rough around the edges these days." Sarah nodded, her gaze thoughtful. "Everyone has their struggles. Sometimes it just takes a little time and kindness to turn things around." Tom studied her for a moment, his eyes searching hers. "You have a good heart, Sarah. Not many people would open their door to someone like me." The sincerity in his voice touched Sarah deeply, and she felt a warmth spreading through her chest. It was rare to meet someone who appreciated such simple acts of kindness. They fell into easy conversation, exchanging stories that meandered like a river through varied landscapes. Tom spoke of his days as a firefighter, describing the camaraderie of the station and the adrenaline of rushing into a burning building. His eyes lit up as he recounted tales of bravery and teamwork, and Sarah could see the pride he once felt. "What made you leave?" Sarah asked gently, sensing that there was more to the story than he was letting on. Tom hesitated, his expression turning pensive. "Life changes, you know. Sometimes in ways you never expect. I lost a few good friends on the job, and it took a toll on me. Then, after my wife passed away, things just unraveled." Sarah listened, her heart aching at the loss etched in Tom's voice. She understood the weight of grief, how it could wrap itself around you like a shadow, suffocating and relentless. "I'm sorry, Tom," she said softly. "That sounds incredibly difficult." "It was," Tom admitted, a hint of vulnerability in his tone. "But you learn to keep going, even when it feels like you're moving through quicksand." Sarah nodded, appreciating his honesty. She sensed that Tom carried his past with him, like a heavy rucksack, each step a struggle against the burden. "What about you, Sarah?" Tom asked, steering the conversation back to her. "What's your story?" Sarah smiled, a bit surprised at the question. "My story isn't as exciting. I grew up here in Chicago, went to art school, and now I work as a graphic designer. It's a good job, but I always felt like there was something more I was supposed to be doing." "Like helping people?" Tom suggested. "Maybe," Sarah replied, a thoughtful note in her voice. "I've always wanted to make a difference, but sometimes it's hard to know how." Tom nodded in understanding. "Well, you've already made a difference tonight. And maybe that's how it starts, with small gestures that ripple outward." Their conversation continued late into the evening, the hours slipping away unnoticed. It felt to Sarah like reconnecting with an old friend, a sense of familiarity and trust growing between them. As Tom prepared to leave, Sarah hesitated. "You know," she said, glancing at the couch, "you're welcome to stay here tonight if you'd like. It's much warmer than outside." Tom seemed taken aback by the offer, his eyes searching hers for any sign of reluctance. Seeing none, he nodded, gratitude etched into his features. "I'd appreciate that, Sarah. Thank you." Sarah gathered some blankets and a pillow, setting them on the couch for him. "If you need anything, just let me know." "Will do," Tom replied, his voice a low rumble that seemed to resonate with the quiet of the room. As Sarah retreated to her bedroom, she felt a sense of contentment that had been missing for some time. Her decision to open her door, and her heart, to Tom felt right, as if she were aligning herself with some invisible thread of destiny. With that thought, she drifted off to sleep, unaware of the journey that lay ahead for both her and Tom, and how this small act of kindness would shape their intertwined futures. Morning light filtered through the curtains, casting a warm glow across the apartment. Sarah awoke to the smell of freshly brewed coffee, a surprising yet pleasant change to her usual routine. She stretched, feeling the kind of contentment that comes from a good night's sleep and the knowledge that something positive lay ahead. As she entered the kitchen, she found Tom standing by the stove, a steaming pot of coffee in his hand and a gentle smile on his face. "Good morning," Tom greeted, gesturing toward a mug he'd set out for her. "I hope you don't mind. I thought I'd get things started." Sarah chuckled, accepting the coffee with gratitude. "You're spoiling me. I'm usually the one making breakfast around here." Tom shrugged, a playful glint in his eyes. "Consider it my way of saying thank you." They settled into an easy rhythm, enjoying the simple pleasure of breakfast together. Tom had found some eggs and bread in the kitchen, and the aroma of scrambled eggs mingled with the rich scent of coffee, creating a cozy atmosphere. "So, Tom," Sarah began, taking a sip from her mug, "what made you decide to become a firefighter?" Tom leaned back in his chair, his expression thoughtful. "It was something I always wanted to do. As a kid, I was fascinated by stories of heroism, of people risking their lives to save others. It seemed like a noble way to live." Sarah nodded, intrigued by the passion in his voice. "And did it live up to your expectations?" "In many ways, yes," Tom replied, a hint of nostalgia creeping into his tone. "There's nothing quite like the camaraderie of the firehouse or the rush of adrenaline when you're charging into a burning building. You're part of something bigger than yourself." His eyes grew distant, and Sarah sensed a twinge of longing, as if he were revisiting a part of his life that had been both exhilarating and devastating. "Any memorable stories?" she asked, eager to keep the conversation light and engaging. Tom chuckled, leaning forward with an animated spark. "Plenty. I remember one time when we got a call about a cat stuck in a tree. We showed up, ladders and all, only to find out it was a false alarm. The cat was actually a stuffed animal some kid had thrown up there. We all had a good laugh about that." Sarah laughed, the image vivid in her mind. "I suppose not every call can be a dramatic rescue." "No, but it's those small moments that stick with you," Tom said, a smile tugging at his lips. "It reminds you not to take life too seriously." As they continued to share stories, Sarah found herself captivated by Tom's anecdotes. His tales of firefighting ranged from the humorous to the heartwarming, each one painting a picture of a man who had lived through both triumph and tragedy. "What about you, Sarah?" Tom asked, shifting the focus back to her. "You must have some stories from your design work." Sarah considered this, tracing the rim of her mug with her finger. "Well, I did once work on a campaign for a new cereal brand. They wanted something edgy and modern, so I designed a whole ad series around these cereal mascots having epic adventures, kind of like a comic book." Tom grinned. "That sounds fun." "It was," Sarah said, her eyes lighting up with the memory, "until the client decided they wanted something more traditional. I think they ended up going with a picture of a bowl of cereal with a sunrise in the background." Tom chuckled, shaking his head. "Sounds like the kind of anticlimactic ending we all face sometimes." Their conversation continued to ebb and flow, a comfortable exchange that seemed to erase the boundaries of time. Sarah found herself opening up about her dreams and challenges, her voice laced with the hopes and uncertainties that came with trying to find her place in the world. "You know," Tom said, his tone contemplative, "it's rare to find someone who's willing to listen, to really hear you, without judgment or expectation." "I'm grateful for that," Sarah smiled, touched by his words. "I think we all need that from time to time. It's easy to get lost in the noise of everyday life." They fell into a companionable silence, the kind that arises from shared understanding. Sarah realized that she was learning just as much from Tom as he was from her. His perspective, shaped by years of experience and hardship, offered her a new way of seeing the world. As the morning stretched into afternoon, Sarah felt a sense of fulfillment that had been absent for far too long. It was as if she'd been given the gift of connection, a reminder that the world was full of unexpected friendships and untold stories waiting to be discovered. With this newfound sense of purpose, Sarah knew that her journey with Tom was just beginning, and she was eager to see where it would lead. The morning sunlight streamed through the kitchen window, casting a warm glow over the modest apartment. Sarah was finishing up the dishes from their shared breakfast, the soft clinks of plates and cutlery punctuating the peaceful silence. Tom had taken a walk, needing some fresh air and a moment to clear his mind. Sarah's thoughts wandered back to their conversation from earlier, where Tom had shared glimpses of his past. There was a palpable sense of heaviness in his stories, a depth of experience that intrigued and concerned her. She knew that offering temporary shelter was just the beginning. There was more she wanted to do to help him find a way forward. Determined to gain a broader perspective, Sarah decided to visit Linda Rodriguez at the bookstore. Linda had always been a trusted friend, someone who offered wise advice and a sympathetic ear. Sarah hoped that Linda's insights might help her navigate the complexities of Tom's situation. The bookstore was a sanctuary of warmth and knowledge. Its wooden shelves were lined with books that seemed to whisper stories of their own. Linda was behind the counter, organizing a stack of new arrivals. Her bright smile greeted Sarah as she walked in. "Morning, Sarah," Linda called out. "How are you?" "Hi, Linda," Sarah said, returning the smile. "I'm doing well, thanks. I actually came by because I need to talk to you about something." Linda's expression turned curious. "Of course. What's on your mind?" They moved to a quieter corner of the store, where the soft glow of the reading lamps created a cozy atmosphere. Sarah took a deep breath, gathering her thoughts before speaking. "I've been helping a man named Tom. He's homeless and was staying at my place last night. He's had a rough life, was a firefighter, lost his wife, and things sort of spiraled from there." Linda nodded, her expression attentive. "It sounds like you've already made a difference by offering him a place to stay. What's troubling you?" Sarah sighed, her fingers tracing the cover of a nearby book. "I feel like I want to do more, but I'm not sure how to help him effectively. I've heard his stories, and he seems like he's been through so much. I don't want to overstep, but I also don't want to leave him hanging." Linda's gaze was thoughtful as she listened. It's natural to want to help, especially when you see someone in need. But it's also important to approach the situation with sensitivity. People in Tom's position often carry a lot of pride and can be hesitant to accept help. "Exactly," Sarah said, relieved that Linda understood her concerns. "I want to be supportive, but I also don't want to come across as intrusive." Linda considered this for a moment, then offered a reassuring smile. "Sometimes the best way to help is by being a consistent presence. Encourage Tom to seek professional support if he's open to it, like counseling or job assistance programs, and continue to offer him a safe space where he can start to rebuild." Sarah nodded, absorbing Linda's advice. "That makes sense. I've been thinking of helping him find resources, but I didn't want to push him into anything he wasn't ready for." Linda placed a comforting hand on Sarah's shoulder. "It's a delicate balance, but you're already doing something important just by being there for him. The fact that you care makes a big difference." They continued their conversation, with Linda offering practical suggestions on community resources and local organizations that could assist Tom. Sarah felt a surge of determination, bolstered by the guidance from her friend. As Sarah prepared to leave, Linda handed her a list of contacts and resources, her tone encouraging. "These might be useful for Tom. Just remember to approach it gently and let him take the lead in deciding what he needs." "Thank you, Linda," Sarah said, gratefully accepting the list. "I really appreciate your help and support." "Anytime," Linda replied with a warm smile. "You're doing a wonderful thing, Sarah. Keep trusting your instincts." With renewed purpose, Sarah left the bookstore, the weight of her decision feeling lighter. She knew she had a path forward, one that involved not only providing immediate support, but also guiding Tom toward resources that could offer him long-term stability. As she walked back to her apartment, Sarah reflected on her conversation with Linda. She felt a sense of hopefulness about the future, both for herself and for Tom. It was clear that their journey together was just beginning, and she was committed to helping him navigate the road ahead. When she arrived home, Tom was already back, sitting on the couch and leafing through a book he'd found on her shelf. His expression was thoughtful, and Sarah could see that he was reflecting on their recent conversations. "Hey, Tom," Sarah said, setting the list of resources on the table. "I spoke with a friend today, and she had some good suggestions about how we can get you some additional help." Tom looked up, his gaze curious but receptive. "That sounds promising. I'm open to whatever might make things better." Sarah smiled, feeling a sense of accomplishment. "Great. Let's go through these together and see what options might be right for you." As they began to review the list, Sarah felt a sense of optimism. It was clear that their journey was far from over, but with each step, they were building a path toward a brighter future. The morning sunlight poured through the apartment windows, casting a warm glow over the room. Sarah was at her desk, sorting through the list of resources Linda had provided. Tom, having offered to help with household chores, was busy tidying up the living room. His actions were methodical, almost as if he were regaining control over parts of his life by organizing the space around him. As Sarah reviewed the list, she noticed a few local organizations that offered job training, counseling, and temporary housing assistance. She knew that taking the first step toward these resources could be daunting, so she wanted to make the process as smooth as possible for Tom. "Hey, Tom," Sarah called from her desk, her voice carrying a note of encouragement. "I've been going through this list, and I think there are a few places that might be really helpful for you." Tom looked up from the couch, his expression curious. "Oh, what did you find?" Sarah walked over and handed him the list. "There's a community center nearby that offers job training and career counseling. They also have workshops on resume writing and interview skills. And there's a support group for people who face similar challenges." Tom scanned the list, his brows furrowing in thought. "That sounds promising. I've been trying to figure out my next steps, and this could be a good start." Sarah nodded, trying to gauge his level of interest and readiness. "How do you feel about visiting one of these places today? We can go together if you want." Tom hesitated, his fingers tapping against the list. "I appreciate the offer, Sarah, but I don't want to impose. I think I'd be okay going on my own." Sarah's eyes softened with understanding. "I get it. Just know that I'm here to support you in whatever way you need. If you change your mind or need any help along the way, don't hesitate to reach out." Tom gave a small, appreciative smile. "Thanks. I'll think about it." Sarah could sense the mix of determination and apprehension in Tom's demeanor. It was clear that taking the first step was a significant challenge for him. She hoped that by offering her support, she could ease some of the uncertainty he was feeling. As Tom prepared to leave, Sarah decided to accompany him to the community center. She felt that having a familiar face might make the experience less intimidating. They arrived at the center, a modest building nestled between a coffee shop and a small park. Its facade was welcoming, with a sign that read, "Community Support and Career Services." Inside, they were greeted by a friendly receptionist who provided them with information about the available programs. Tom signed up for a career counseling session and a resume workshop, both of which were scheduled for the following week. Sarah watched as Tom interacted with the staff, noting his careful and respectful demeanor. "I think this could be a good fit for you," Sarah said, her voice gentle as they walked back to the apartment. "It seems like they have a lot of resources to help with job searching and getting back on track." Tom nodded, looking more hopeful than he had in days. "Yeah, I think so too. Thanks for coming with me today. It helped to have someone here." Sarah smiled, feeling a sense of accomplishment. "I'm glad to be here. It's important to take these steps, and you're doing great." Back at the apartment, Tom settled into his usual spot on the couch, a small but genuine smile on his face. Sarah could see the relief and optimism in his eyes, a stark contrast to the uncertainty he had shown before. "I've been thinking," Tom said, his tone thoughtful. I'd like to get a part-time job or do some volunteer work while I'm figuring things out. I want to stay active and keep moving forward." Sarah's eyes lit up with enthusiasm. "That's a great idea. Staying active can make a big difference. I can help you look for opportunities or connect with organizations that might be looking for volunteers." Tom nodded, appreciating her offer. "I'd really like that. It's been a while since I felt like I was contributing to something." As they continued to discuss potential job and volunteer opportunities, Sarah felt a growing sense of purpose. Helping Tom navigate these challenges was becoming more than just a temporary act of kindness. It was a chance to make a lasting impact on someone's life. The day continued with a renewed sense of energy and possibility. Tom was clearly motivated, and Sarah was determined to support him every step of the way. They both knew that the road ahead would be filled with ups and downs, but with each small step, they were building a foundation for a better future. As evening approached, Sarah and Tom sat together in the cozy living room, the atmosphere filled with a sense of quiet accomplishment. Tom looked more at ease than he had in days, and Sarah felt a deep satisfaction in knowing that she was making a difference. Their journey was far from over, but with each day, they were moving closer to the goals they had set. Sarah's commitment to helping Tom was unwavering, and she looked forward to seeing how their efforts would unfold in the days to come. The city buzzed with activity as Sarah and Tom walked down the busy street toward the community center. The crisp autumn air was filled with the scent of fallen leaves and the distant hum of traffic. It was a bright, invigorating morning, and the sense of potential that had been building between them seemed to match the promise of the day. Tom, dressed in a clean but slightly worn jacket, carried a stack of neatly organized papers. His resume, letters of recommendation, and a few samples of his past work. Sarah had helped him prepare these documents, and they now represented a tangible step toward rebuilding his life. As they entered the community center, Sarah noticed that Tom's posture had straightened, and there was a hint of determination in his stride. The receptionist greeted them warmly and directed Tom to the career counseling office. "Are you ready for this?" Sarah asked softly, placing a reassuring hand on his shoulder. Tom nodded, his eyes focused ahead. "I am. Thanks for being here." Sarah watched as Tom approached the counselor's desk, where a middle-aged woman with glasses and a friendly smile awaited him. The counselor introduced herself as Helen, and after a few polite exchanges, Tom began discussing his career goals and past experiences. Sarah took a seat in the waiting area, her heart pounding slightly with nervousness for Tom. She glanced around, noting the other clients who were also engaged in various stages of their job search. The center was bustling with activity, a testament to the community's commitment to supporting its residents. After a little while, Tom emerged from the office, looking both relieved and encouraged. Helen had provided him with constructive feedback and had scheduled him for a few more sessions to refine his resume and practice interview skills. Tom thanked Sarah as they walked out, his face lit up with a hopeful smile. "Today went well," Tom said, his voice carrying a note of optimism. "Helen was really helpful. She gave me some good advice on how to present my experience and what to focus on during interviews." "I'm glad to hear that," Sarah replied, matching his enthusiasm. "It sounds like you're on the right track." As they left the community center, Sarah decided to make the most of the day by suggesting a visit to a local cafe. It was a small celebration, a chance for Tom to enjoy a well-deserved break, and for them to discuss their next steps in a relaxed setting. The cafe was cozy, with an inviting atmosphere and the rich aroma of freshly brewed coffee. They ordered their drinks and found a corner table where they could talk without distractions. "So, what's next on the agenda?" Sarah asked, stirring her coffee. Tom took a sip of his latte and looked thoughtful. "Helen mentioned that there are some job fairs coming up in the next few weeks. I think it would be good to attend those and see what opportunities are out there." "That sounds like a great idea," Sarah agreed. "Job fairs can be a good way to make connections and learn more about potential employers." They spent the next hour discussing various job prospects, volunteer opportunities, and other ways Tom could stay active and engaged. Tom was animated and engaged, his earlier apprehension replaced by a clear sense of purpose. As the conversation turned to lighter topics, Sarah shared some of her recent design projects, and Tom listened with genuine interest. They laughed over shared stories and anecdotes, enjoying each other's company and the easy camaraderie that had developed between them. Their time at the cafe passed quickly, and as they prepared to leave, Sarah noticed a change in Tom's demeanor. He seemed more relaxed, more confident, a reflection of the progress he was making and the support he was receiving. Back at the apartment, Sarah and Tom continued to work on their plans. Sarah helped Tom research local job fairs and volunteer organizations, and they mapped out a schedule for the upcoming weeks. The sense of partnership in their efforts was palpable, and Sarah felt a deep satisfaction in knowing that she was making a difference in Tom's life. As evening approached, Tom looked over at Sarah with a grateful smile. "Thanks for everything today. I really appreciate your support." Sarah returned the smile, feeling a warm glow of contentment. "You're welcome, Tom. I'm happy to help. Seeing you take these steps forward is really rewarding." The day ended with a sense of accomplishment and hope. Tom was taking tangible steps toward rebuilding his life, and Sarah was proud to be a part of that journey. They both knew that there would be challenges ahead, but with each passing day, they were building a stronger foundation for the future. As Tom prepared to settle in for the night, Sarah felt a renewed sense of purpose. Their journey was unfolding with each step they took, and she was excited to see where their efforts would lead. The path ahead was filled with possibilities, and together, they were moving closer to a brighter tomorrow. The following week brought with it a flurry of activity. Tom and Sarah were in a routine, balancing job searches, counseling sessions, and other practical steps Tom needed to get back on his feet. The apartment had become a hub of productivity, filled with the sounds of research, typing, and occasional bursts of laughter. One afternoon, after a particularly busy morning, Sarah and Tom decided to take a break and enjoy a walk in the nearby park. The weather was crisp and clear, the kind of day that seemed to encourage reflection and conversation. As they strolled along the tree-lined paths, the conversation turned to their personal histories. Sarah had mentioned a few details about her family and upbringing, and Tom, feeling increasingly comfortable, decided it was time to share more about his own past. "You know," Tom began, as they passed a cluster of vibrant autumn leaves, "I've been thinking a lot about the past lately. It's strange how certain memories just come flooding back when you're trying to move forward." Sarah glanced at him, her expression encouraging. "I can imagine. Sometimes reflecting on the past can help make sense of the present." Tom nodded. "It's just that there are some things I haven't talked about in a long time. It feels like it's time to revisit them." They found a bench under a large oak tree and sat down, the leaves rustling gently overhead. Tom took a deep breath, his gaze focused on the ground for a moment before meeting Sarah's eyes. "I was a firefighter for nearly 25 years, Tom began, his voice steady but tinged with emotion. "It was a job I loved, but it was also incredibly demanding. We saw a lot of things, both good and bad." Sarah listened intently, sensing that Tom was about to share something significant. "There's one memory that stands out more than the others," Tom continued, his tone growing softer. "It was a fire about 20 years ago, in a residential building. There was a little girl trapped on one of the upper floors. I remember her mother's face. She was frantic, pleading with us to save her child." Tom paused, his eyes distant as he recalled the event. "We managed to get the girl out, but it was a close call. I remember thinking how precious and fragile life is. I didn't know it at the time, but that little girl, she was you." Sarah's eyes widened and she took a moment to process the revelation. "Me? I don't remember much about that fire, but I do remember feeling scared and disoriented. My parents told me that a firefighter had saved me." Tom nodded, a somber expression on his face. "I didn't realize it was you until recently, when I saw a photo of you at the community center. It all came together. The fire, the rescue, and the sense of connection I felt when I met you. Sarah was silent for a moment, her mind racing with the implications of Tom's revelation. I had no idea. It's incredible to think that you were the one who saved me. Tom's gaze was steady, filled with a mixture of relief and melancholy. It's strange how life works out. I've been struggling with a lot of things lately, and meeting you felt like a strange twist of fate. Like maybe it was meant to be. Sarah reached out, placing a comforting hand on Tom's. I'm grateful for what you did for me, and I'm grateful that we met again. It feels like there's a reason for everything that's happened. Tom looked at her, a hint of gratitude in his eyes. I've been trying to make sense of my past and find a way forward. Your support has meant more to me than I can put into words. They sat together in silence for a while, the weight of the moment settling between them. The realization of their shared history added a new layer to their relationship, deepening the bond that had already formed. As they resumed their walk, the conversation shifted to lighter topics, but the connection between them was undeniably stronger. Sarah felt a renewed sense of purpose in helping Tom, knowing that their shared past made their present efforts even more meaningful. Back at the apartment, Tom seemed more focused and driven. The knowledge that his actions had made a difference in Sarah's life gave him a renewed sense of purpose. He was determined to honor that past by working toward a better future. As evening approached, Sarah and Tom spent time preparing for the upcoming job fair and organizing their plans. The day had been a turning point, one that had deepened their understanding of each other and solidified their commitment to moving forward together. The shared history had woven a new thread into their relationship, making their journey together even more significant. With each passing day, they were not only working toward new beginnings, but also honoring the past that had brought them together. The morning sun cast a golden light over the city, signaling the start of a new day filled with possibilities. Sarah and Tom had spent the previous evening preparing for the upcoming job fair, mapping out their approach and discussing strategies. Both felt a blend of excitement and nerves as they geared up for what lay ahead. The job fair was being held in a large convention hall downtown, a bustling space filled with booths and representatives from various companies. The scale of the event was overwhelming, but the energy in the room was palpable, filled with the buzz of hopeful job seekers and enthusiastic employers. Sarah and Tom arrived early, eager to make the most of the opportunity. As they entered the hall, Tom's eyes scanned the rows of booths and informational displays. His expression was a mixture of awe and determination. "Wow, this is bigger than I expected," Tom said, his voice tinged with both excitement and anxiety. Sarah smiled, offering a reassuring nod. "It is. But remember, this is a great chance to make connections and learn about potential opportunities. We'll take it one step at a time." They approached the registration desk to pick up their materials and receive an overview of the event. Tom was given a map of the booths and a schedule of presentations and workshops. Sarah suggested they start by attending a few of the workshops to gather tips and insights on job applications and interviews. The first workshop they attended was focused on resume building. The presenter was a professional career coach who offered practical advice on creating a standout resume. Tom listened intently, taking notes and occasionally glancing at Sarah for encouragement. After the workshop, they visited several booths, talking to recruiters and gathering information about job openings. Tom was engaging and enthusiastic, his confidence growing with each conversation. Sarah watched with pride as he effectively communicated his skills and experiences, making a positive impression on potential employers. At one booth, Tom struck up a conversation with a recruiter from a local construction company. The recruiter was interested in Tom's background and suggested he apply for a position that matched his skills. Tom took the recruiter's business card, a hopeful expression on his face. "That seemed like a good lead," Sarah commented as they walked away from the booth. "It sounds like the job might be a good fit for you." Tom nodded, his excitement palpable. "Yeah, I think so too. I'm going to follow up with them as soon as I can. They continued to explore the job fair, attending more workshops and networking with other job seekers. The atmosphere was lively, filled with a sense of shared purpose. Tom was energized by the interactions and the prospect of new opportunities. As the day drew to a close, Sarah and Tom took a break to sit down and reflect on their experiences. They found a quiet corner of the hall where they reviewed the materials they had collected and discussed the connections they had made. "I think today went really well," Tom said, looking pleased. "I've got a few solid leads and a better idea of how to approach the job search." Sarah agreed, feeling a sense of accomplishment. "You did great today, Tom. Your enthusiasm and preparation really showed. I'm confident that you'll find something that's a good fit." Tom's gaze was thoughtful as he considered the day's events. "I've been feeling more hopeful lately. It's nice to see that there are opportunities out there, and it feels good to be taking steps toward a new chapter." Sarah smiled, touched by Tom's reflection. "I'm glad to hear that. You've come a long way, and I'm proud of how you're handling everything." As they left the convention hall, the evening air was cool and refreshing. The city lights began to twinkle, adding a sense of magic to the night. Sarah and Tom walked side by side, their conversation reflecting on the day's successes and their plans for the future. Back at the apartment, Sarah and Tom continued their discussion, reviewing the job fair materials and strategizing their next steps. Tom seemed more energized and focused, his previous doubts replaced by a renewed sense of purpose. The day had been a significant milestone in Tom's journey, and it was clear that he was gaining momentum. Sarah was grateful for the progress they had made and looked forward to seeing what the future held. As Tom prepared for bed, Sarah felt a deep sense of satisfaction. The job fair had been a turning point, and Tom's growing confidence was a testament to the hard work and support they had put into his journey. With each step forward, Tom was moving closer to his goals, and Sarah was honored to be a part of that process. The path ahead was filled with potential, and they were ready to face it together, embracing the new horizons that awaited them. The days following the job fair were a whirlwind of activity. Tom had diligently followed up on the leads he'd gathered, applying for positions and attending interviews. The apartment was abuzz with anticipation as Sarah and Tom eagerly awaited the results of his efforts. One crisp morning, as the sun filtered through the curtains, Tom received a phone call that would change the course of his journey. Sarah, in the kitchen making coffee, heard Tom's end of the conversation. "Really? That's fantastic news," Tom exclaimed, his voice a mix of disbelief and excitement. "Thank you so much for the opportunity." Tom hung up the phone, his face lit up with an exuberant smile. He turned to Sarah, who was watching with curiosity. "That was the construction company," Tom said, practically bursting with enthusiasm. "They offered me a job. It's a position as a project coordinator, which is right up my alley." Sarah's eyes widened with joy. "That's incredible, Tom. I'm so happy for you." "This is a huge step forward," Tom nodded, still processing the news. "I can't believe it. After everything that's happened, this feels like a real breakthrough." Sarah and Tom celebrated the news with a small but heartfelt toast of coffee. The weight of uncertainty that had lingered over Tom seemed to lift, replaced by the promise of a new beginning. They spent the rest of the morning discussing the details of Tom's new job and making plans for the transition. Tom was eager to start his new role, but he also took the time to reflect on the journey that had brought him to this point. "You know, Sarah," he said, his tone contemplative, "I've been thinking about how far I've come. It's not just about getting a job, it's about rediscovering who I am and what I want out of life." Sarah smiled warmly. "It's been inspiring to see you make such progress. This job is just the beginning of a new chapter for you." Later that week, Tom started his new job, and the transition was smooth. The construction company welcomed him with open arms, and Tom quickly became an integral part of the team. His experience and dedication shone through, and he was soon recognized for his contributions. Sarah, too, felt a sense of fulfillment. She had seen Tom through the ups and downs, and witnessing his success was deeply rewarding. She continued to support him, celebrating his achievements and offering encouragement whenever needed. As the weeks passed, Tom and Sarah found themselves settling into a new rhythm. Tom's job provided him with a renewed sense of purpose and stability, and he was thriving in his role. He also started volunteering at a local community center, using his skills to help with various projects and giving back to the community. One evening, after a busy day at work and volunteering, Tom and Sarah sat on the apartment's balcony, enjoying the cool night air. The city lights twinkled below, and the stars seemed to shine with a newfound brilliance. "I've been meaning to thank you," Tom said, his voice filled with gratitude. "None of this would have been possible without your support. You helped me get back on my feet and find a new direction." Sarah's gaze was soft, her eyes reflecting the warmth of the moment. "It's been a privilege to be a part of your journey. I'm glad to see you so happy and fulfilled." Tom looked out at the cityscape, his expression thoughtful. "It's funny how life works out. I never expected things to turn out like this, but I'm grateful for every step of the way." Sarah nodded in agreement. Sometimes the most unexpected paths lead to the most rewarding destinations. As they sat together, reflecting on the journey they had shared, there was a sense of contentment and achievement. Tom's new job, his volunteering, and his renewed sense of purpose were all testaments to his resilience and the support he had received. Their bond had grown stronger through the process, and they both looked forward to the future with optimism. The challenges had been met with determination, and the rewards were both tangible and deeply personal. As the night deepened, Tom and Sarah enjoyed the peaceful silence, knowing that they had navigated a significant chapter in their lives. The future held promise and potential, and they were ready to embrace it with open hearts. Tom's journey had come full circle, from a period of struggle to a new beginning filled with hope and possibility. And through it all, Sarah had been a steadfast companion, supporting him every step of the way. One weekend morning, Sarah suggested they visit a local farmer's market. The idea was met with Tom's enthusiastic agreement. It was a beautiful day, with the crispness of fall in the air and the sun shining brightly. They enjoyed the bustling atmosphere of the market, browsing through stalls of fresh produce, handmade crafts, and local delicacies. As they walked together, their conversation turned to their respective journeys over the past months. Tom had been reflecting on his experiences and was eager to share his thoughts. "You know, Sarah," Tom said as they sampled some fresh apple cider, "I've been thinking a lot about how everything has come together. It feels like a full circle moment." Sarah looked at him curiously. "What do you mean?" Tom smiled, his eyes reflecting a sense of fulfillment. "When I think back to the fire and how I ended up on the streets, it's like everything was leading me to this point. Meeting you again, finding this job, it's like a new chapter was waiting to begin." Sarah nodded, understanding the depth of Tom's reflection. "It's amazing how life can bring unexpected connections and opportunities. Your journey has been remarkable, and I'm glad to see you so content." They continued to explore the market, enjoying the sights and sounds of the vibrant atmosphere. Tom was particularly drawn to a booth selling handmade wooden crafts. He admired the intricate designs and chatted with the artisan, who shared stories about his craft and the inspiration behind his work. As they made their way back to the apartment, Tom and Sarah carried bags of fresh produce and artisanal treats. The day had been a pleasant escape from their routine, and they both felt rejuvenated. Back at the apartment, Sarah and Tom spent the evening preparing a meal with the ingredients they had purchased. The kitchen was filled with the aroma of cooking, and their conversation was light and cheerful. During dinner, Tom looked at Sarah with a thoughtful expression. "I've been meaning to ask you something. Have you ever thought about what's next for you?" Sarah paused, considering the question. "I've been so focused on helping you and supporting your journey that I haven't really given it much thought, but I suppose it's time to start thinking about my own goals and aspirations." Tom nodded, his expression encouraging. "You've been such a huge part of my journey, And I want to make sure you're also thinking about what makes you happy. Sarah smiled, touched by Tom's consideration. Thank you, Tom. I appreciate your support. Maybe it's time for me to explore some new opportunities and see where they lead. As they finished their meal, the conversation turned to their future plans. They discussed potential projects and goals, both personal and professional. Tom expressed interest in furthering his education and exploring new career paths, while Sarah contemplated creative endeavors and personal growth. The discussion was filled with optimism and excitement, a reflection of their shared commitment to moving forward. They both recognized that their journey together had been transformative and that the future held endless possibilities. Later that evening, Tom and Sarah sat on the balcony, watching the city lights sparkle in the distance. The air was cool and crisp, and the peaceful silence was a stark contrast to the bustling market they had visited earlier. "This has been quite a journey," Tom said, his voice filled with gratitude. "I never imagined that meeting you again would lead to such profound changes in my life." Sarah turned to him, her gaze warm. "It's been an incredible experience, and I'm grateful for everything we've shared. It feels like we've both grown in so many ways." Tom nodded, his expression reflecting a sense of contentment. "We've come full circle. From the fire to this moment, it's been a journey of rediscovery and growth." As they sat together, the stars shining brightly above, they both felt a deep sense of closure and new beginnings. The past had shaped their present, and their shared experiences had forged a strong bond. As the night deepened, Tom and Sarah enjoyed the quiet serenity of their surroundings, knowing that they had navigated a significant chapter of their lives with grace and resilience. The story of their journey was a testament to the power of connection, hope, and the transformative nature of new beginnings.